Check the mic and make sure it sound right, boys.
We are gathered here today to tie up some loose ends when it comes to the computer mouse experiment that has recently been going on at the Geek House. So yeah, there's a couple of things we have to go over before we can truly move on from this whole mouse thing. First, the Logitech ain't nothing but a G mouse. Yeah, I was a bit of a tech boomer, and I didn't really take the time to properly understand all the new fancy new features that are available on gaming mice these days. So when I actually did that wonderfully intellectual thing known as actually reading the instructions and learning how to use the darn thing, I learned that this extra button along the side is not for some kind of clutch pedal or whatever in order to change the DPI. It's for a temporary change in DPI while you're holding the button down. So, let's say you want to do like a sniper shot with really slow aim, you just hit the button and your mouse slows way down to be set the DPI to what it was. Or in Battlefield 1942 back in the day, I could have used this button for the tank turrets, which required you to do this in order to swing the darn turrets around, but put a high DPI on the button, then just hit the button when you need to swing a tank turret. So really cool stuff. These two buttons here are DPI adjustments. They adjust up and down, and you can use the software to save the DPI settings to the mouse, so it doesn't start super slow, or you just hit one of the DPI buttons to get it out of super slow mode. I actually really like how comfortable it is. I think it's a great successor to the IntelliMouse series, now that I actually know how to use the darn mouse. Whatever. On the Pictek side of things, I'm continuing to experiment with this budget brand. The last mouse, this one, the T7, was a little too small, so it felt like using a laptop mouse. You could flick it around with your fingers to do stuff, but anything that involved moving your hand would get rather uncomfortable after a while because it felt like using a laptop mouse. It all depends on the size of your hand. Really comfortable otherwise. But then I decided to check out their bigger mouse in the catalog, and that's this sucker right here, the PC278A. Wow. That's a mouthful. I think it's like T something else as well. If you install the driver, it tells you what the T number is. But it's actually the polar opposite. Whereas that one was something you flicked around with your fingers, this thing's a Cadillac. It's nice and comfortable, but it's nice and comfortable in doing stuff with your whole hand. Not so handy when you're trying to flick it around like this. But at least they do a better job of hiding the red mouse sensor, or the red laser or optical sensor or whatever underneath all the blue that I have it programmed with. So this extra button, by the way, is an assignable button. It starts out as click 3 times so you click that and it clicks 3 times for you. I just have it set to middle click, so I don't have to awkwardly push down the mouse wheel in order to middle click. I just hit a button off to the side. You'd be pretty surprised how handy something that simple is. And of course, you get your DPI up and down, your forward and back, and unlike the other Pictek mouse, little bit of dirt got in there. And unlike the other Pictek mouse, which was all plastic, this actually has some rubber on the side. So it basically has a thumb cave and little things for your fingers to go around. The problem is, it does kind of lend itself to using your whole hand a little too much when you want to just flick the mouse around like this when playing games and things along those lines. Maybe it's better for ergonomics. The other problem I have with this is it's heavy. It's a heavy mouse. Yeah, let's get that out of there. Where the heck did that come from? It's a heavy mouse, so it drags a bit. Out of the box, this thing feels like the Azio mouse that started all of this when I thought the rubber stuff on the bottom was getting too worn off. What the heck happened there? I don't know. Anyways, yeah. So it drags a little bit too much, so it's definitely a heavy mouse. It's like a Cadillac, basically. If you ever rode in a Cadillac Land Yacht, and one of those cars that would be super comfortable, even though you were going super slow. So this is the big Pictek mouse, whereas that one was a little too small, this one's a little too big. Hey, speaking of which, why isn't this plugged in? The Pictek T7 is not plugged in because it's dead. That's right, I've barely had this mouse a few weeks, and it's had an electrical failure. Check this out. Here's the plug. Check out what happens when I plug it in. Watch the Pictek mouse right next to it. So I plug it in, it doesn't light up, and the other thing shuts off. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a short here. If you plug this thing in, it shuts off everything else on the same USB controller. So if I plug this thing in at monolith, it'll shut off the streaming microphone, the mouse, the keyboard, everything else that goes into the same USB controller. It's basically shorted, and you can smell it too. If you sniff right around here, you catch a whiff of that telltale smell of burnt electronics. I don't know how things short and burn up at only 5 volts, but this thing found a way. So, shortest lasting mouse that I've ever had. What a pity. It's eligible, it's actually still eligible to the tune of just a couple of days. It's still eligible to return for replacement though, so I could RMA it since it barely lasted, but oh well. Hey, you know, down around this price range with like $10 mice and stuff, you get what you pay for. You consider if prices are high because of the shortages and whatnot, you're basically getting what you pay for. This is probably the equivalent of a $5 mouse. I liked, though, how it was all plastic. So that way, whereas rubber kind of wears weird and things like that, plastic actually gets slippier as it gets older. So, you know, it actually becomes less of an issue and things like that. But I really like this mouse. It's just the shortest lasting mouse that I've ever had. And what a pity at that. So, I think this is being sold through an importer or something, so I don't know how returns would work for it, but hey, you know, $10 mouse, you get what you pay for. So here's what's next. The Logitech G is going to become my mouse of choice over at Monolith, and the Pictek Hand Yacht, nice parody of Land Yacht, because it basically is a Cadillac of a mouse, is going to become my mouse of choice over here in the project area for working on the project systems. I, of course, have some other budget mice that I could use as well, and I gotta put those mice away from the experiment earlier, and hey, if I don't return this thing, maybe I can do like some kind of teardown video and see if I can spot what's shorted. But darn, you know, an electronics failure in a computer mouse. I don't even think I've seen that before. I mean, we just busted out a 20-year-old IntelliMouse Explorer in that tech video earlier. And right, this thing's dead in just a couple of weeks. Whatever. Maybe I should RMA it. See what the seller thinks. So, Monolith Project Area. The show goes on regardless. MultimediaJay out.